Okay, so we're now going to look at EQ. Now, what is EQ? EQ essentially is a volume control for different frequency bands. Now, we looked at what is frequency. Frequency is pitch. So, EQ is one of the most powerful tools we have because basically we can take the way a track sounds, we can shape its tonal characteristics. So if it sounds too boomy, we can remove some of the boominess. If we want it to sound brighter, we can make it sound brighter, we can make it sound fuller. And all we're doing is we're finding the frequencies in those areas that either stand out too much and make it sound a certain way or don't have enough. And we are either boosting them or we're cutting them. We're turning up and down certain frequencies. So we go to inserts here in Pro Tools. Here's where we apply plugins. And one of the most popular plugins we use is an EQ plugin. And we're going to load up the standard Pro Tools 7-band equaliser. So when we look at this EQ, we have a meter, which tells us our input level coming in, and the output level from this EQ. We can turn up and down the input and output levels. We're going to skip the high pass filter section for now. And here our EQ is divided into different frequency bands. A low frequencies, a low mid frequencies, high mid frequencies, and high frequencies. Now if we engage low frequencies and we turn up this gain control, as you can see, we have a visual representation here of 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz and a volume. So turn up 6 dB at 100 Hz there. You can see that's our point, and that's what we're like on this graph. This is a visual parametric EQ. There's two different shapes. This is a bell type EQ. We can see that a center frequency and the curve going down here. So what this would do is at its center frequency 100 Hz, this will be the loudest. And then the frequencies around it will be boosted, but not as much towards the other side. And we can adjust this by the Q. We could have a narrow Q, which would just focus on that 100 Hz to boost. Or we could have a wide Q, which will, as I said, boost more around the certain areas. So anything on this graph is here is what we are doing with the EQ. So I have it here in the kick drum. If I slow the kick drum and I go back, I just play the kick drum, you can hear what these moves are doing, just so you get an idea. This is a Q. So we just found that one frequency there and affecting more frequencies around it. If you go for more of a natural sound, you want to make sure you've got a fairly wide Q. Anywhere like a Q about 1 is fine. If you would just want to focus in on a certain frequency and remove it and take it out, then you would use a narrow Q. So this is a shelf, which basically means that anything below this frequency that we choose is going to be adjusted. If you use here a high frequency shelf, everything above it is going to be affected with the EQ. And here we have our filters. Here we have a high pass filter. So we engage that and we go up to 100 Hz. What this means is that everything below 105 Hz won't be heard. It'll be 18 dB quieter. So what it does is it removes the low end and it lets the high frequencies pass through. That's why it's a high pass filter. If we turn this off and we engage the low pass filter, as you can see here, it's just letting the low frequencies pass through and it's removing the high frequencies. If we engage both of these, then this is called a band pass filter, which is removing the high and low frequencies and it's keeping us with the mid frequencies. So low frequencies, high frequencies, and our mid frequencies. Now, our mid frequencies are divided, like I said, into our low mid frequencies, our mid frequencies, and our high mid frequencies. Our low mid frequencies are anywhere from about 200 hertz to about 1 kilohertz. That's why we got this control here. Mid frequencies can be anywhere from 1 kilohertz up to about 3 to 4 kilohertz. The high frequencies usually start around 2 to 3 kilohertz, and then they could go up to about 8 kilohertz. And a high frequency is about 8 kilohertz and above, 6 kilohertz above. There's no exact points where you go, that's a high, that's a mid, and a low frequency. To some degree, it's just about identifying in that sound source where those parts are. Everything you record is going to sound different in terms of its frequency content. There is no set preset that you can use that is going to always work because every sound source sounds different. The thing about EQ is that you have to understand certain parts of each instrument that sound well, and you have to find the frequencies that you want to boost and take away. A good rule is this has too much, means you're going to cut frequencies. If it doesn't have enough, then you're going to boost. So we're going to EQ this kick drum, and we're going to disengage everything. And you go, okay, that kick drum sounds alright. It's about everything I need, but I want to add more bottom end because it doesn't have much low end. So I'm going to set it to our low frequencies. I'm going to choose about 80 hertz because 80 hertz is where you're going to get a little bit more thump. And then I'm going to add about 3 dB. 3 dB is when you hear quite a noticeable difference. The next thing here is try to find a little bit of a boxiness frequency there. So anything boxy is probably around 400 hertz. Okay, so remove some of that boxiness. We've added a little bit of low end. Next thing I'm going to do is add a bit more smack from the beta. This can be around 4 kilohertz. Right there, as soon as straight away you can hear beta sound. Around this area is very sensitive, around these high mid frequencies. So it's important not to add too much of it as it can fatigue your ear. However, if you're trying to tone shape a certain instrument like a kick drum that just doesn't sound right the way you recorded it, then it's fine to add as much EQ as that you want. Like that's fine. If we want to add a bit more air, we could use a high shelf. We could set it to about a kilohertz, and that's going to give you that more tacky, you hear it, it's more like a metal kick drum sound the more you add to it. The more clickiness out of the kick drum. Which adding it will help make that clickiness stand on top of the mix. The more high frequencies you add, the more things are going to sound like they sit on top of a mix. As you learn that frequency is more about height, and depth is more your volume. see here that we've added a lot of volume. Our output level has gone up compared to our input level. If we bypass the plugin, we can see it turns it off. We can compare the before and after. It's also very important to make sure we got your EQ move, that you check it in terms of the rest of the mix, so that way you can match the EQ with all your different instruments. So you match it with your snare drum, make sure you match it with your bass guitar.
Sometimes you talk to hear yourselves screaming out loud. Never ever heard what you said. Can't you see yourselves? Can't you?
Okay, that's a very basics of EQ. We'll look at equalizers more in our upcoming mixing videos.
Sometimes you talk